Hello friends, ES Win here. I'm going to make a quick video answering a question I received recently. The question was something along the lines of, can I use crystals as part of my practice as a Viking pagan? Well, if you're looking for historical accuracy, the examples are pretty limited. The Viking Norse, the closest thing that they perhaps used in terms of a crystal, wasn't necessarily used for spiritual purposes as far as we can say, though there is some melding between the spiritual and physical at that time. I have one. It's called an Icelandic Spar, and this was used as a navigation tool. It allowed you to tell where the sun is by holding it up to your eye, seeing where the rainbows were when it was cloudy out. It allowed the Vikings and other Norse to navigate in cloudy weather while they were out on the ocean. And so, in a sense, that is using a crystal for the act of navigation. Now, I keep this piece of Icelandic Spar in my car normally. I look at it kind of as like a charm. I don't use it to find the sun while I'm driving in the hopes I can find my way all the way to the other end of town. But rather, it's the idea, the energy of the piece that matters to me. For me, this sunstone, this Icelandic Spar, is a symbol. It's a crystal that I use so that I don't get lost, or to help me not get lost, both metaphorically and physically. So that's why I keep it in my car. Other translucent crystal-like objects that were used by the Norse in a spiritual fashion would have been amber. Of course, not a crystal, but still a translucent and very pretty thing that's associated with Freya, and it's known even as a healing stone, even though I guess it's not technically a stone, but it's still considered to be something like that in some books. But yeah, I keep mine. This actually I also keep in my car to sort of draw in the blessings of Freya. Freya is one of my primary patrons. Another thing is I have this, which is kind of a glass bead bracelet type of a thing, kind of like prayer beads, like pagan prayer beads. Each one of these beads represents a god in the pantheon. And I chose to make it in this way partly because by being inspired by the bracelets and necklaces of colored glass that were worn by the women during the Viking times, the Norse women during the Viking times. And so, yeah, that was quite common in terms of like wealthy women would have lots of colored glass. And they'd have amber colored glass, and the rarest was the blue colored glass, and they'd often string the two together, amber colored glass and blue colored glass. They'd string them together on the same necklace or the same bracelet so that they could kind of evoke the power of the sun, or attract that kind of that good warm energy, that growth energy of the summertime sun. Having blue glass at one point for my ancestors, and perhaps yours as well, was considered a great show of wealth. It was very rare and very pretty. I have a bracelet that I don't have handy at the moment that I wear every day, and that bracelet has quite a bit of blue glass and amber colored glass, and it has a homage to my ancestors. You as a heathen or Norse pagan or a Viking pagan, however you identify, Northern Path, when it comes to whether or not you can or can't use crystals, my policy remains pretty much the same on such things. Absolutely. If you're trying to completely reconstruct exactly the way it was done by a particular family in a particular farmstead in a particular period, well, ultimately the decision about whether to use crystals is up to you. Every cults are regional, so there may have been a group of people during the Viking Age who used crystals. Perfectly possible. But as far as I know, the practice was not anywhere near the same as it is today in terms of NeoPagan and New Age practices, using crystals for divination, using crystals as energetic storage mediums, using crystals to get in touch with the lost continent of Mu. I mean, people have using crystals for chakra healing, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of wonderful practices out there that you can definitely combine with your Norse heathen practice. Don't let someone tell you that just because it isn't historically accurate, that it isn't right. You should do what you feel called to. If you want to go out there and you want to worship Freya or Loki or Thor, and you want to do, Thor energetic cleansing with a crystal this big, hey, if it works, rock on, do it. There's nothing wrong with that. What you should be doing is what feels right to you, ultimately. So don't let someone else tell you that just because something isn't historically accurate, you shouldn't be doing it. Where you run into trouble is when you start saying, well, I remember in a past life using a giant crystal this big, to channel the energy of Thor. Well, I'm not going to tell you you didn't, because I wasn't there. But it would definitely stand out, I think, in the art if we were to find a giant Thor channeling crystal. That doesn't mean you can't do it now. Just always be aware of most likely scenarios in terms of historical practices if you're trying to copy historical practices, instead of doing what feels right and being inspired by historical practices, which is what I think. Well, it's the best policy for me. It's the policy that I stick to. And so if that works for you, if you're not a total, very careful reconstructionist, and not that there's anything wrong with that, you should just do whatever feels right. So now that I've repeated myself about 6 times in terms of giving you permission to do whatever you want, telling you that it's perfectly fine, that it's the right way to go, I suppose I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is E.S. Wynn. I am the author of 71 books in print. I have a Patreon. I'll put a link to that Patreon in the About section for the video, and also a link to my website. I make videos about heathen subjects, Northern Path, Germanic pagan subjects, and also some audio books and audio poetry and stuff like that. But if you have any questions about things you'd like to know more about, feel free to put it in the comments section, or go on my Patreon and put the comment or put the questions on there. I'd love to make more videos answering people's questions. All right. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.